So there's this misconception that everything about fighting games at every level is super duper hard. And it may seem overwhelming because you gotta learn so much stuff. I mean, you gotta memorize combos, right? That's like memorizing how to play an entire song just to be allowed to play the game. This is false advertising though. You, at some point way down the line, can and in fact should learn a few combos, but starting out, you literally don't need any. There's a big difference between hard and complicated. Picking up 200 pounds is hard, but it's fairly simple. There's techniques and forms to do it better and safer, but ultimately it just boils down to picking up a big rock. Fighting games are a lot like this. There's techniques and forms, and you can spend a lifetime refining and mastering them, but ultimately it all boils down to hitting the opponent and trying not to get hit in return. Or in other words, just hit them, Lamau, and just don't get hit, Lamau. So because I've had a lot of friends and acquaintances show interest in the game, I want to give a beginner's crash course on how to play Guilty Gear Strive. I'm not going to touch combos, Roman cancels, reversals, supers, frame data, wall mechanics, nothing complicated. I'm just going to focus on the core things you, as a brand new player, need to know. Don't worry about anything else just yet. You'll learn gradually as you'll improve, and I'll leave some links to videos that cover this game and other fighting games mechanics in greater detail. But for now, let's just learn how to pick up a controller and not die. So in order to play the game, you have to pick a character to play. Seems obvious, right? But a lot of people overcomplicate it. They say that you should pick the character who has the best all-around fundamental tools to learn the game, but that's BS. You will learn the fundamentals and have a good time playing whoever you think is the most fun. So just pick whoever you want and don't worry about it. If I had to give one recommendation though, don't pick Happy Chaos as your first character just because he has the weirdest, most unfighting game-ish mechanics. He's weird. Just if you want to learn him, cool, just know that it's really difficult, especially for a beginner. I'm going to be using what's called numpad notation. It may sound and look scary, but it's just shorthand for directions. Numpad notation always assumes your character is to the left of your opponent and you are looking to the right, since that's the default position you load into when going into training mode. So 4 is away from the enemy, 6 is towards, 2 is straight down, and 8 is straight up. Guilty Gear has 5 buttons: punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, and dust. Generally speaking, attacks tied to any given button serve a fairly similar role across characters. For example, a character's fastest attack is almost always one of their attacks performed with punch or kick. Slash, when performed while standing, has 2 variations, one for when you're close to the enemy and one for when you're far away. This goes for every character. Close slash is usually a combo starter, and far slash is usually a poke. We're not going to worry about heavy slash that much for right now because it's often used for your slowest, most punishable options. Dust has a few unique mechanics associated with it, but we'll cover those in due time. Alright, so you've got back walk, forward walk, you can jump back, straight up or forward, double tap back to back dash, double tap forward to run. You can do these inputs in the air to air dash, either backwards or forwards. You can do either kind of air dash out of any jump.
Danger.
So the most important movement you can perform is blocking. I know it seems like you're not doing anything, but trust me, it's really important. So blocking comes in 2 varieties, high and low, done by holding 4 and 1 respectively. Letting you know right now, your default block should absolutely be crouch blocking. This is gonna get a little bit into the weeds, but it's important. So what you're blocking is attacks, and attacks come in 3 types, or heights: low, middle, and high. Crouch blocking blocks mids and lows, and high blocking blocks mids and highs. So why default to crouch blocking if they both block 2/3 of all attacks? Well, lows and mids are by far the attack types you will see the most, and they usually come out so fast they're unreactable. So it's best to just default to preemptively blocking them. Highs, or overhead attacks, need to be blocked high, but these are often telegraphed quite a bit, so your general blocking strategy is to block low and switch to high block on reaction. So here's a real quick demonstration of overheads. Every character can perform an overhead in 2 ways, either hitting the dust button while standing, or jumping. Since every attack done in the air is considered a high attack. Next, I want to talk about faultless defense, or FD. You can think of it as a super block. You do it by blocking and holding 2 attack buttons that aren't dust. You can FD high or low, and if you do it high, your character will block in place and not walk back. Holding FD will continuously drain your tension meter. If you don't have any tension, you can't FD. So why should you FD? Well, it prevents you from taking chip damage while blocking, which is nice, but it also pushes your opponent further away. Here's a block string on a normal block, and here's the same block string, but Mei is going to FD this time. Kai's final attack whiffs here because of the pushback, leaving him open. If you use FD to push your opponent away, you can force them into doing something unsafe and then punish. Next, let's talk about burst. To perform a burst, you press dust plus any other attacking button. You can only burst when the gauge is full, and it looks like this. And this is the sound cue for the burst gauge being full. Burst's main function is to get you out of a combo. Here's a combo that I'm just gonna let happen. This time, I'm gonna burst out. The opponent can block your burst and get an even bigger combo as a result, so try to be unpredictable with when you use it. Next up is pokes. They're what you use to control this grounded mid-range part of the screen. Kai's Fart Slash is an amazing poke, since it has great range and you can go into a special move unhit or block. Now, not everyone wants to play Kai, because he's boring, Catholic, and worst of all, French. So how do you find a poke as another character? Well, all you can do is go to training mode, hit start, training options, position reset, and select mid-range. Now, when you reset, you'll be able to test what buttons work. Please don't be scared by this hitbox jump scare. Don't worry, I promise it's not complicated. This is what's called a 6P, and it's a type of move that every character has. The red boxes are hitboxes. They're what makes contact with the opponent and hits them. The blue is the hurt box, and it's what decides if a hitbox hurts you. You may have noticed that, above the waist, none of these guys have a hurt box. This is because every 6P makes you upper body invincible. You perform a 6P by pressing towards the opponent, or 6, and pressing punch, hence 6P. There's a ton of uses for 6P, but for a beginner, the most important one is that it's a reliable way to beat air attacks. It's fast, easy, and safe, because your entire upper body can't be hit if you time it right. This is what's called an anti-air, and it, along with blocking and poking, is one of the single most important things you can do. It's one of the 3 cornerstones of your playstyle. Generally speaking, a character's best combo starter comes from a jumping attack, so the best thing you can do is swat them away before they can even attempt to get a combo started. Oh, it's also great at beating pokes. It's also great at beating moves like the infamous Totsugeki because, again, upper body invincibility. And because it's universal, literally anyone can do this. Easily one of the single most powerful tools in the game. The last mechanic I want to talk about is throws, performed by inputting 4 or 6 plus dust. It goes through blocks, and it's the way people are going to discourage you from blocking. Inputting a throw at the same time as the opponent results in a clash. I don't recommend going for throw techs too often, though, because the range is pretty short, and if you whiff, your opponent gets to rip out your fucking soul. Okay, so you know what buttons are good to press, you know how to block, so now what? What's your game plan? How do you put this all together? At mid-range, your goal is to occasionally poke. This has the effect of making your opponent look for another avenue to get in, and that means jumping. And jumping means anti-airs, and anti-airs mean you go back to poking. If you don't successfully do this, your opponent's going to be in your face.
but it's okay because you're going to block them. Maybe push them back a bit with FD, and then get right back to poking. If their mix-ups are too strong and you get put in a combo, you have burst to reset to poke and 6p range. So why play like this? Well, because the average fighting game player doesn't want to think. They want to get a jump in, do their big dumb Twitter combo, and go home. And hell, maybe you do too. But this playstyle will not only counter theirs, but enable you to do big dumb combos by forcing mistakes more reliably. Make no mistake though, this playstyle is much slower and more defensive than your typical Joe Schmo, and that's by design. You have to learn how to not die before making them die. Lastly, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, you are going to lose. You may have already realized that, but you have to realize that your goal is to think and learn, which is slow and purposeful. It's going to take you a while to improve. Their goal is to hit button, which isn't purposeful, but boy is it fucking fast. You're going to get overwhelmed, and you're going to get outsped, you're going to get hit with some gimmick that's going to seem impossible to beat, and you are going to lose. You have to divorce your ego from your wins and losses. You are more than a win-loss ratio in a video game. Fighting games are like instruments. They're at the cross-section between discipline and hobby. So if you're finding that this isn't enriching you, take a break. Nobody should force you to be miserable, least of all yourself. So take care and be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Peace.